I've been doing multicam wedding videos for well over a decade. In that time, tools have changed of how to do the multi-camera sequencing. I learned how to do it in Final Cut Pro 6 back in the day with Adobe. I learned it many years ago, how to do nested sequences, all that. I used to use an extension called Pluralize to actually sync all my audio and video together, so that way I could then make my multi-track. Now with Adobe having built-in syncing features inside Premiere, it's really helpful. Not 100% though, because if you have some cameras that still split up the video tracks, the clips that is, into separate clips, because that once it hits a certain size, it just makes it a new clip, then you are going to have to do some finagling. I'm going to show an example of how I do it. This is a 2-camera setup. Both these cameras happen to not break up the clips, so it makes it a little bit easier. It's not hard to do. If it does, you just kind of like use the first clip and then just drop the rest in afterwards. You might miss half a frame and have to adjust it slightly, but it's really good anyways. But here, I'm going to show you how I do it. Here I have Premiere Pro open, and let's just go ahead and make a new project. And I'm going to tell you, I do not use the new screen thing that they set up. I still use my tried and true old school method because it works for me. Find out what works for you. So let's go ahead. I'm going to go choose my location, and here's my hard drive, and this is the wedding we're going to be working on. So I'm going to choose that, and I just am going to name it the same thing that the folder's name, because then it is easy to keep track of. And I'm not going to do any templates. I'm not going to import anything here. I'm not going to do any of that stuff over there. I'm just going to create, because this is how I like to do it. And I'm in the audio preset because that's what I was in last time. So let's change my editing preset. Actually, for this, you might want to use assembly. So the assembly preset's really nice because you can see all your stuff on the left side here, and I can maybe adjust this a little bit so I have more timeline space. But for putting things together, I really do like the assembly, because then I don't have to use a small little window to find everything. I have this big window. And to get everything in here, I'm just going to go back to my folder. So here's the folder for this wedding, and here's all my files in it. So I've already separated. Here's my camera 1, camera 2. This is my plugin to the DJ. So I use a Tascam Direct Record XLR connector to plug into the DJ sound system. Plus I have 2 Tascam DR10Ls that I use for both the groom and for the officiant. And you can see these have 2 different recordings. They're both the same recording, but there is a D appendage after one of them. That's because those Tascams, if you don't know already, you can do a safety record, so you have a lower audio recording in case there is a peak issue that it can't handle. In all my years of using these, I've never had to use that, but I still record it because audio doesn't take up that much space and it's worth it just in case. So here are my folders. I'm going to select the folders and drag all of them over to my project area and let them all import. That way I have everything. It's already in my folder structure that I've created, and that makes a lot easier for me to do the work. Okay, so after your computer works on that for a couple of minutes and everything's importing, here I have my different folders. If you're familiar with Premiere Pro, you can see on the bottom right, it's generating all the peak files for all the video clips. So that does take a moment. You maybe go off a sandwich or something, come back, let it do its thing. Either way, we can get started here. So I have my bins here. I'm going to actually change my view to this view maybe. No, I love list view. I enjoy list view. It's just how I operate all the time because I'm looking for media duration. Because I know that the long clip, as long as this is in the correct order, the first time I find a long clip in here should be the wedding ceremony. And this is going to be a lot of getting ready beforehand. But here, I have a clip that's 27 minutes. So if I double click on that, I can see this is definitely the wedding ceremony. Now, normally I do 3 camera setups. This had to be moved inside at the last minute because it was raining outside. So the room we moved into didn't really have a space for a 3rd camera on a tripod without being in the shot, and that just would look awkward. So we went with just 2 cameras on this. So now I have that clip there, and if I go back here, I'm going to I can identify the other one. There's only 2 clips in this part because this is the ceremony, and this one is going to be the introductions and first dance and stuff like that. You can see 38 minutes and 32 minutes. So if I double click on that again, I can see that this is definitely the ceremony. Preview through that. Now, if we look at my settings, you can see one camera is true 4K at 4096 pixels, and the other camera is at faux 4K at 3840, because there are 2 different kinds of cameras, and one can shoot a little bit higher than the others. It's just the newer version of the same camera. Camera 1 is the Lumix S5 Mark II. Camera 2 is the Lumix S5. So just a couple more features with the new Mark II version. So a lot of times when I have everything matching, or I have one file that's going to be the master file, I'll just drag that into the sequence area and make a timeline from that, because then I know I have the right settings. In this case, I'm going to go ahead and I can see these are all shot in 24, right? I'm going to go back to my top bin, and we're going to create a new bin for sequences, because I'm going to create a sequence for every part of the wedding. I want to have that highlighted when I go to my new sequence button here. And I do love that Premiere Pro has really simplified the presets. So here's my 4K presets, and you also have HDR presets too. We're not shooting HDR though. So I'm going to choose the preset that's correct for what we're doing, and that's going to be this. That's the right frame rate. Come down here, give it a name, and just call it ceremony. So that's going to be my sequences bin. So that way all my sequences will be organized. That's very important, keeping things organized. So we're going to come back to cam 1. And here's that clip again. Double click just to double check. There it is. I'm going to drag this to track 1. And then it's going to say, hey, do you want to change your sequence settings because of things? I'm going to say, no, keep existing settings. You'll notice the camera that I was using, the mode I had set up, and actually recorded 4 audio channels, even though I only need the stereo pair that's up here. So I am not actually sure why I did that. We're gonna undo this for a second. Well, let's right click on this over here and go to modify audio channels, and we can see how it's set up. So it's set up as mono with media sources 1, 2, 3, and 4. So I am going to go ahead. I want to just double check something else, see if they're all set up like that. That's interesting. Let's go look at camera 2 real quick, because it should not be like that for everything. See, this is up as stereo. So something weird, probably setting ahead of my camera, because I had to do something else with it that day. It was a little different. So I could change all these right now. In fact, I think I'm going to do a blanket change real quick. Select them all. Go to modify audio channels. Make this stereo. Boop. And get rid of that part. So it'll only be one audio clip. There we go. Hit OK. And now when I come back and move, oh, I lost track of where it is now. And now when I move that clip back in, there is, gotta keep existing settings. There it's gonna be. Now you'll notice there's actually bars in the top and bottom because I'm using a smaller frame. The reason why I'm using the smaller frame as my preset is because, again, the other video clip is smaller. So, the dimensions of camera 2 are smaller. Really, all I should do is make a match, both of them. But what I can do now to make this correct is I have to be in my editing view to do this, because now I can go to my effects controls. So you can see the scale. I have a preset set up that is automatically scaling things to fit in the frame. I want this to fill the frame, so I'm going to change this to 100 so it fills the frame. I'm going to crop off the very edges. That's fine. I don't need those edges. So let's let them crop off. I'm going to go back to my assembly view here. And then we're going to bring in video clip 2. That's my camera 2. And then we're also going to go, I'm just going to scroll this down. So I have 3 different audio sources to add in as well. So I have a DJ audio source and 2 lavs. One is going to be the groom and one is going to be the officiant. So let's do this in an organized way. I'm going to have the DJ go next, and then the efficient, and then the groove. However, whichever order you want to do it in is fine. And if I zoom all the way out, you can see that they are all at different lengths. You know, my audio clips, I started a long time. The grooms, because I put that on them a long time before the start. I wanted to make sure it was on, recording, and working. And my main camera is the shortest because that's the one I'm on. Everything else I have recording beforehand. Now, we're just going to select everything in the timeline. Right click, go to synchronize, and make sure the audio function is selected, and hit OK. And now it's going to do its little thing. It's going to listen to everything, find all the matching audio, and move everything. It's important to make sure that for this to work right, all your audio settings on all your devices are set the same, so it's all the same sample rate. And then here we are. And we can hide this. Oops, hide this frame. Oh, let's go like further down, right? You can see these are kind of the same here. So all these are lining up. Now, I'm probably going to want to trim off all this extra stuff that we don't need, right? So let's zoom in here. See, hold down shift and cut through everything. Back to my V key, highlight those, delete it, click here and do a ripple delete, zoom out, get back to the beginning. Now, that's step one. I now have everything on my timeline. I'm going to switch back to my editing view now because I'm going to want that for the next part. I just like being in the editing view. I don't know why. This just feels like home. I also like to see more timeline. The next thing to do, again, I'm going to make sure my sequences is highlighted because anytime you generate a new sequence, it's always going to go in the folder that's highlighted. So I just want to make sure that's highlighted over there or selected. I'm going to select everything in my timeline. I really just need to select the two video clips for this. And I'm going to right click. Doesn't matter if you do all of them or not, but you need all the video clips selected. Right click, and you're going to hit nest. And you can name this. So I could say nested ceremony, right? That way I know which nested clip is which, and hit OK. So now I have a nested clip. You'll see it's created over there, which is not in my sequence folder, but I can just drag that in where I want it to be. So that way everything is organized. Okay, great. It's nested. It's still not multi-camera yet. Next thing I need to do, right click, multicam, enable. And now it's enabled. Now up here in my program monitor, I have to hit the wrench and go multi-camera. And now I can see multi-camera. I'm going to move this over so I can see this a little bigger. And now this is a multi-camera view. Now, I have noticed something with the new Premiere. I'm actually running the beta right now. This is not the default layout it was in the previous version. This is now just showing up to 4 windows in this current view, right? So I only have 2 cameras going, but if you had 3 or 4, they'd be down here. And right now, camera 1, you see the yellow frame around it, that's the selected camera. If I click the wrench again and I scroll down, you see there's some other options down here. Multi-camera audio follows video. So that would mean when I switch from one clip to the other, the audio is going to change with it. I don't want that. I want to do my own audio mixing separate. The thing that used to be on by default is the show multi-camera preview monitor. So if I turn that on, you'd actually see over here is the program. So as I switch between the cameras using my number keys on the top of the keyboard, it's going to show which is which. So that way you know what the output is. That might be a little more taxing on a system. So maybe if your computer is having a little hard time processing, and keep that shut off. I think this is a new setting right here, auto adjust multi-camera playback quality. And that's probably a good thing to turn on, especially if you have an older machine that can't handle multi-camera, because the more camera feeds you have in, especially at 4K, it needs a lot more processing requirements from the computer. So now I have all this beautiful audio down here. I have one video clip. Now I'm probably not going to use all this audio in the final product, right? Because I have 2 on-camera mics, which I need to use one of them. I need to use one of the on-camera mics because I need that room sound. So I might decide what to do with that later. Now these two, the officiant and the groom, I know these I can start at 0 because neither one's talking at the beginning. So I'm going to drop those down completely before we start. But now it's a matter of going through and cutting 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2 all the way through the video. Now you'll notice also, I just want to point this out, the color looks off here on camera 1 versus camera 2, and that's because they're in a different room to start. And the color temperature of those lights is different from what the ceremony is, and I balance for the ceremony. I might tweak these frames afterwards, but for now I wanted to be balanced for what the ceremony is going to be and not necessarily for what the other room was. So now we just go through. Okay, so now I've gone through and I've done all my preliminary cuts for this wedding, and for whatever reason my camera to record on OBS is not working right now, so you can't see my wonderful face. No big deal. But you can see here, this is my timeline. Here's that nested sequence, and it has all these are all the cuts where I've switched from camera 1 to camera 2. Now, and I've also gone down here and I've done all of my audio edits, or at least preliminary ones before I listen again. So I've put the lav mic up, taken the lav mic down where I've needed to. And if you want to adjust any of these edits, I'm going to move forward here where there's no music. If I take my rolling edit tool and I can nudge these edits back and forth. So when you're looking like, oh, I wish I cut a second sooner, you can just use your rolling edit tool and just slide it one way or the other. And that will fix your edit. So it's a nice way to go back and fix those edits afterwards. Now, one thing I have been doing now that Adobe has put this inside of here is that now with these lav mics, I'm going to go to my audio editing layout here. And I've been tagging them as dialogue and letting it do the audio enhance for my lav mics. And let that do its process. So, and that's going to make it sound better. I always preview it first. I don't want to just go out the door like that, but I'm going to listen to it. But that's it. That's how I set up my multi-camera sequences in Premiere Pro. And I'll do that for the ceremony. I'll do that for the introductions of first dance. I'll do that for anything that I have multiple cameras on. I'll create my own sequences and then I put them together in one master timeline at the end with all the sequences on that. And I hope you found that helpful. I know I've been tweaking this over the course of years and I've never really seen anyone else go into it this way. I want to be able to see all the audio at all times in my point of view. I hope you found this video helpful, and if you did, please give it a thumbs up.